boys and girls. Happy Thursday. It's almost the weekend for you. I hope you had a great day yesterday, and I hope you're having a great day today. Um, like I've told you before, I record these the night before, so it's Wednesday right now. But it was a really nice day today. So Ella and I played outside this afternoon after my schoolwork was over. And now I'm back outside recording this video because it's so nice and it's supposed to rain. So hopefully you got to go outside yesterday on Wednesday. And maybe it won't rain on Thursday. So we'll see. But we're going to go ahead and keep going with BFG. And I stopped yesterday after Sophie said, "How did you ever learn to write in the first place?" And then she said, "Considering you never went to school, how did you learn?" So now he's going to explain that. The BFG crossed the cave and opened a tiny secret door in the wall. He took out a book, very old and tattered. By human standards, it was an ordinary-sized book, but it looked like a postage stamp in his huge hand. "One night," he said, "I is blowing a dream through a window, and I sees this book lying on this little boy's bedroom table. I wanted it so very badly, you understand. But I is refusing to steal it. I would never do that." "So how did you get it?" Sophie asked. "I borrowed it," the BFG said, smiling a little. "Just for a short time, I borrowed it." "How long have you had it?" Sophie asked. "Perhaps only about 80 years, the BFG said. "Soon I shall be putting it back." Okay, now remember, when the BFG talked earlier about years and how old he was and all of that, the years didn't really seem to matter, right? So, but to us, there was a little boy and he borrowed this book 80 years ago. So how old do you think this little boy is now? At least 80 years old, right? Probably older because he was a little boy at the time. So maybe if he was 8 years old like you guys, now he's 88 years old. Okay, so he's no longer a little boy. "And so that's how you taught yourself how to write?" Sophie asked him. "I is reading it hundreds of times," the BFG said, "and I is still reading it and teaching new words to myself and how to write them. It is the most scrumdiddlyumptious story." Sophie took the book out of his hand. "Nicholas Nickleby," she read aloud. By Dolls Chickens," the BFG said. "By who?" Sophie asked. Just then there came a tremendous noise, galloping feet from outside the cave. "What's that?" Sophie cried. "That is all the giants zib-fizzing off to another country to guzzle human beings," the BFG said. He quickly popped Sophie into his waistcoat pocket, then then hurried to the cave entrance and rolled back the stone. Sophie, peeping out from her spy hole, saw all 9 of the fearsome giants coming past at full gallop. "Where is you off to tonight?" shouted the BFG. "We is all of us flush bunking off to England tonight," answered the flesh lump eater as they went galloping past. "England is a luxurious land, and we is fancying a few nice little English chidlers." "I," shouted the maid masher, "is knowing where they is a giggle house for girls, and I is guzzling myself full of froth blower." "And I knows where there's a boggle box for boys," shouted the gizzled gulper. "All I has to do is reach in and grab myself a handful. English boys is tasty, extra lick swishy." In a few seconds, the 9 galloping giants were out of sight. "What did he mean?" Sophie said, poking her head out of the pocket. "What is a giggle house for girls?" "He is meaning a girls' school," the BFG said. "He will be eating them by the bundle." "Oh no!" cried Sophie. And boys from a boys' school," said the BFG. "It mustn't happen," Sophie cried. "We've got to stop them. We can't just sit here and do nothing." "There's not a thing we can do," the BFG said. "We as helpless as horse feathers." He sat down on a large, craggy blue rock near the entrance of his cave. He took Sophie from his pocket and put her beside him on the rock. "It is now quite safe for you to be outside, until they is coming back," he said. The sun had dipped below the horizon, and it was getting dark. I'm going to show you this one picture. This is the BFG holding that book in his hand. And he, as they said, it looked like a stamp, like that we would put on a card and mail in the mail. The next chapter is called The Great Plan. "We've absolutely got to stop them," Sophie cried. "Put me back in your pocket quick, and we'll chase after them, and we'll warn everyone in England that they're coming." "Redunculous and impossible," said the BFG. "They is going 2 times as fast as me, and they is finishing their guzzle before we is even halfway." "But we can't just sit here and do nothing," Sophie cried. "How many girls and boys are they going to eat tonight?" "Many," the BFG said. "The flesh lump-eating giant alone has the most squackling wopsy appetite." "Will he smash them, or will he snatch them out of their beds while they're sleeping?" "Like peas out of a puddle," the BFG said. "I can't even bear to think of it," Sophie cried. "Then don't," the BFG said. "For years and years I is sitting here on this very rock every night after night when they is galloping away, and I is feeling so sad for all the human beings they is going to gobble up. But I has had to get used to it. There's nothing I can do. If I wasn't a little twitchy runt giant, only 24 feet high, then I would be stopping them. But that is absolutely out of the window." "Do you always know where they're going?" Sophie asked. "Always," the BFG said. "Every night they is yelling at me as they boodling past. The other day they was yelling, 'We is off to Mrs. Sippy,' and it's spelled like 2 different words, and Miss Zory to guzzle them both." "Disgusting," Sophie said. "I hate them." Again, not a nice word, but it's in the book. She and the big friendly giant sat quietly side by side on the blue rock in the gathering dusk. Sophie had never felt so helpless in her entire life. After a while, she stood up and cried out, "I can't stand it. Just think of those poor girls and boys who are going to be eaten alive in a few hours' time. We can't just sit here and do nothing. We've got to go after those brutes." "No," the BFG said. "We must," Sophie cried. "Why won't you go?" The BFG sighed and shook his head firmly. I want you guys to sigh and shake your heads. "I has told you 5 or 6 times," he said, "and the 3rd will be the last. I is never showing myself to human beings." "Why ever not?" Sophie asked. "If I do, they will be putting me in a zoo with all the jiggy-raffs and caterpillars." "Nonsense," Sophie said. "And they will be sending you straight back to that orphanage," the BFG went on. "Grown-up human beings is not famous for their kindness. They is squiddle rattlers and grink sludgers." "That simply isn't true," Sophie cried angrily. "Some of them are very kind indeed." "Who?" the BFG said. "Name one." "The Queen of England," Sophie said. You can't call her a squiddle rattler or a grink sludger." "Well," the BFG said, "you can't call her a squick peep or not muncher either," Sophie said, getting angrier and angrier. "The flesh lump eater is longing dearly to guzzle her up," the BFG said, smiling a little now. "Who?" "The Queen?" Sophie cried. "Yes," the BFG answered. "Flesh lump eater said he has never eaten a queen, and he thinks perhaps she has an especially scrumdiddlyumptious flavor." "How dare he?" Sophie cried. "But Flesh lump eater says there is too many soldiers around her palace, and he dursn't even try it." "He'd better not," Sophie said. "He is also saying he would like very much to guzzle one of the soldiers in his pretty red suit, but he is worried about those big black furry hats they is wearing. He thinks they might be sticking in his throat." "I hope he chokes," Sophie said. flesh lump eater is a very careful giant, the BFG said. Sophie was silent for a few moments. Then suddenly, in a voice filled with excitement, she cried out, I've got it! By golly, I think I've got it! Got what? Asked the BFG. The answer, cried Sophie. We'll go to the Queen. It's a terrific idea. If I went and I told the Queen about these disgusting, man-eating giants, I'm sure she would do something about it. The BFG looked down at her sadly and shook his head. She is never believing you, he said. Never in a month of Mondays. I think she would, Sophie said. Never, the BFG said. It is sounding such a wonky tall story. The Queen will be laughing and saying, what awful rub squash. She would not, Sophie yelled. Of course she would, the BFG said. I has told you before that human beings is simply not believing in giants. Then it's up to us to find a way to make her believe in them. And how is you getting in to see the Queen anyways? The BFG asked. Now hold on a sec, Sophie said. Just you hold on a sec, because I have got another idea. Your idea is as full of croggleswoggles, the BFG said. Not this one, Sophie said. You say that if we tell the Queen, she would never believe us? I is certain she wouldn't, the BFG said. All right, and I'm going to stop there because there's a really good part coming up. You have to wait all weekend to find out. So I want you to be thinking, what do you predict Sophie is going to present to the BFG to tell the Queen about the giants? Okay. A couple things. One, happy summer birthday to Carter. Carter is celebrating his summer birthday today. So if we were at school like we did for Eli's birthday on Tuesday, we would be celebrating his summer birthday. So happy birthday, Carter. And also tonight is our Zoom, okay, 5:30. And remember, I want you to be thinking about a shape that we've learned, a two-dimensional shape, which means it's flat. And you're going to describe that shape to us. Okay, you're not going to tell us what it is. You're going to say this shape has 3 sides and 3 corners. And then we have to guess what shape you're talking about. Okay, and if you need a reminder, it's in your emails of what shapes you can choose from. Okay, I hope to see you guys tonight.